Hey everybody, I'm Flux Ascension and I play Rhianwyn Halcyne, or Rhea for short, in the Final Course, the current campaign that the Phoenix Gaming Guild is streaming on Friday nights. Be sure to rejoin us after this recap on Friday, May 29th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, let me catch you up on Session 7. The morning started quietly. Rune, Rhea, and Vosh headed out to class early, eager for some semblance of normalcy. Leon stayed behind to drag Nemo out of bed, and that in itself took way longer than it should have. When Demo finally made his way downstairs, the two of them shared a cup of coffee and something a little bit more honest than either of them usually allow. Demo talked about Delavine, about what they had been chasing before all of this, before coming to High Throne, about the monster that started everything for them. And Leon listened. They talked about what it meant to keep going, keep getting stronger, and about what they almost lost and what they were still fighting for. Demo gave Leon a hug, and Leon stiffened up and patted him on the back like someone who has never been hugged in their life before, and they do not intend to start now. They agreed that they didn't want to touch the bells for a long time, and then they too headed out to class. Sometime during the morning, the tournament bracket had been posted, and it had drawn a crowd. What was supposed to be the student versus student competition had been modified. Instead of the usual flag objective against other students, some brackets listed Beast, some listed teachers, some listed even some crown guards. The party found themselves on the board for that very night at 10 p.m. up against 3 unknown beasts. After that, the party headed to classes. Demo's music class was straightforward, focused on how inspiration doesn't have to come from music alone. Voshk and Leon were back in the training grounds with Captain Holt, running the same exercise as before. Leon trying to get Vosh to break out of his wolf form at random intervals. However, Captain Holt introduced a pheromone spray mid-combat, dousing Leon to make him smell like a stranger, which did not help Leon in his mission to convince Vosh to change back. The two continued in an unsuccessful back and forth for the rest of their class. When the pair of them left class, Lyra from the Crown Jewel team walked up behind them, patted both of them on the shoulder, and healed both of them. Didn't say a word, didn't look at them, and just kept walking. Meanwhile, Rune and Rhea had their private class alongside the rest of the very real other students. As usual, Professor Longtoe was late, so the two of them talked through what they had witnessed during the last trip into history. Specifically, the cultist who invoked something just before the stars went dark over Selima Grove. A couple of goddesses' names came up, Shar and Saloon, and Rune and Rhea knew that Saloon and Shar were the two original gods, that they preceded the rest of the pantheon, and that whatever relationship existed between the two of them had not ended well. When the door finally opened, it was not Professor Longtoe who entered, but Headmaster Derek with a very confused Demo in tow. The headmaster questioned the trio on what exactly they did in the dorm's basement. He informed them that he now has 2 sets of memories he's trying to reconcile. How? Well, Derek possesses a ring that Donis gave him which renders him immune to changes in the timeline. Derek confirmed that what they saw was real, and that it was not how their countersong had been made. When they made the countersong, it was an accident. Derek and the others hadn't known that it would cost the divine power of a god. When the party pressed him on it, he said something that shook all of them. Derek and his crew hadn't known what god they'd killed. To make something with power beyond the reach of the weave, beyond bloodline and faith and land, it has to absorb something of endless power. A god or something else. Demo pointed out that what he and Leon had witnessed in Sialma Grove involved 2 beams of divine light being pulled from the stars, and the life force of several chained prisoners funneled into the artifacts. Derek confirmed that their fingers were part of that. The original timeline always needed them there. It was, as Rune put with barely concealed existential discomfort, destiny. As Headmaster Derek opened the door to leave, he mentioned that the weather in Crownholm is extremely lovely this time of year. Crownholm is to the west of High Throne, over by the coast. Before they followed Derek out of the classroom, Rune noticed that the cabinet where Professor Longtooth usually stored the Songs of War was unlocked. Every artifact that had been inside it was gone, except for one, the gauntlet that they had been studying. Demo was immediately very interested, and Rhea tried to stop him, but Demo outmaneuvered Rhea with ease and picked up the battle song anyway. When he made a compelling argument, Derek locked the door behind him, left them alone with an opened cabinet, and talked to them about creating songs of war. Derek wasn't careless. This was an invitation to take the gauntlet. So Rune took it from Demo and stored it in the pocket dimension where he usually keeps his glaive. The only thing they knew was that attuning to the gauntlet wouldn't be simple. Our party regrouped in the quad and made plans to gather intel for this evening's fight. Voshk and Demo split off to find Theodore, who's the head Beastmaster, while the other three headed down to the Beast Pens to investigate what they might be fighting that night. Rhea, Leon, and Rune turned up 3 potential groups of beasts: a set of humans with yellow eyes that Rhea identified as lichens, 3 fire elementals, and 3 bugbears. The ranger teacher, Warden Phelan Crosswind, say that 10 times fast, couldn't tell them anything officially, but when Leon introduced himself and expressed an interest in joining the ranger classes, Crosswind conveniently decided to take a break and left his desk and open inventory book behind. Leon and Rune froze time with a moment to think cantrip, just long enough to read it. 10 p.m., 3 fire elementals in the lava arena. Meanwhile, Voshk and Demo ran into 3 members of the Crown Jewels, Myra, Brock, and Zephyr. They were a little distressed that their team was set to fight the Captain Brenner Holt, a war hero, in the first round of the tournament. However, there is a way out. Their teams could merge, fight the lesser of the 2 challenges, and both teams be passed on to the next bracket if they won. Demo and Voshk agreed that that would be best. They then left to find Theodore. He was outside of a faculty meeting. They asked about the tournament. Theodore told them nothing. Then Voshk mentioned casually that they had merged with the Crown Jewels, so they're going to just fight together. Theodore went still. Then he called for Derek. The 2 of them disappeared into the faculty room without explanation, leaving Voshk and Demo standing in the hall completely baffled. After they had been told all year to work with others and get along with the Crown Jewels, and now apparently they've done the wrong version of that. So they decided to logically break into Theodore's office to steal his bestiary book that Leon had been forgetting to inquire after. Upon breaking in, they found that Theodore keeps an interesting and slightly threatening pet hamster and is fond of booby-trapping his desk. What Voshk and Demo hadn't known, and what became clear later, was that Derek had arranged the brackets deliberately. The Crown Jewels were set to fight Captain Holt, a fight designed to humble them, and the party was set to fight 3 fire elementals in the lava arena, a fight set to test their strength, which Veltrix from the Crown had arranged. By merging, Voshk and Demo had turned over both of those chessboards at one time. The party reunited, and Brock met them later to confirm that the merge was happening and that Silas would be joining their team. He also mentioned quietly that Myra had been hurt by something Demo said earlier in the day, that he actually had aimed at Silas, but Myra took the brunt of. Demo added her name to his apology list without hesitation. Then, Brock took them all into a pocket dimension hidden inside a dead oak tree near the edge of campus, a training space that Zephyr's mother had made for him. Target practice, dummies, weapons, a ceiling open to a static night sky that Rhea immediately recognized as being frozen from a week ago. Lyra's desk was in the corner. No one was to touch it. Brock wanted to know about Rune's fighting style by asking him to prove that he could hit through someone else. So Rune responded by nearly killing Demo with a thunder-laced glaive swing that left him unconscious on the floor with 1 hit point. Brock brought Demo back up immediately. Rune felt a little catharsis from that. Demo felt worse than that. And Rhea had left a letter for Lyra on her chair, not touching the desk. They left and headed to the infirmary to get everyone restored back to full health before the fight. The pixie nurse who had treated them this time and many previous times told them quietly with a strange finality that she hoped that they did well tonight. When Demo made a joke about seeing her again if they didn't, she said, "No, you won't." And nobody really followed up on that. As they arrived at the tournament grounds, Demo walked up to Silas and told him that Silas had been his hero once, that he had come to High Throne wanting to be what Silas was before ego took over, that the cruelty had cost him something real, that he was done lowering himself to match him. He apologized, and he meant it. Silas told him to go F off and walked into the arena. The party stepped into the arena at 10 p.m. to an already buzzing crowd. They were used to Derek giving the announcement. Tonight, a crown administrator is who stood at the north end of the arena. She welcomed everyone warmly. She talked about the rift forming across Minthendor. She talked about the Lord of Kings showing them the true path. And then, to everyone's surprise, the Lord of Kings himself stepped forward to the edge of the tower above the arena. Rhea, Voshk, and Silas were standing close enough to each other that they could see Silas go white. The Lord of Kings spoke about peace, about freedom, about justice being brought down in chains. And then, Rune, Leon, and Rhea looked up to the far west tower and saw their headmaster, Derek, eyes wide, being held back by guards. And then they saw who was being brought out to the arena. It wasn't a fire elemental. It was Captain Brenner Holt, the man who fought in the final years of the War of Songs. He pulled out his sword and looked at all 7 of them. This was a man who had fought for his country and his family and intended to see them again. The Lord of Kings called it an execution. He said whoever walks away lives. That was the only rule he gave. And that's where we left off. 7 students, one of them their enemy a week ago, facing a teacher who has done nothing wrong in an arena filled with lava. And with a gaze hotter than lava, the Lord of Kings watching from above. What do you do when the people supposed to protect you and train you become the weapon that's pointed at you? We are the Phoenix Gaming Guild. This is the final chorus. See you at the table.